someone, and I was probably the most sane person in her life, I guess.
Wow.
So that's saying something.
She's real.
With Steve that I can have one
Workshop started
on my
15
property
minutes early
as long as it's
today,
running,
so-
that it won't cause a problem with any code.
We're waiting
Yes,
for you,
if
Kelly.
a tractor would cause a nuisance, I said a tractor by itself won't cause.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order. Do we have any citizen or public comments of anything that's not on the agenda tonight? Seeing none, I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight, and we'll start off with the approval of the agenda.
So move, Your Honor. Second.
Clerk will call the roll.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Agenda is approved. Next, we'll consider the approval of the minutes of the June 12th and 17th meetings.
So move.
Second.
Any questions on the minutes? Clerk will call the roll.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Next is a consideration of approval of the consent calendar.
So move.
Second.
Any questions on any of the consent calendar items? Clerk will call the roll.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager.
All right, very good. Well, we'll move right on into the business of the mayor, and the first is a proclamation for Sarcoma Awareness Month for July. Do you guys want to tell us all what we're all about here? One of the two of you? You have to go up to the microphone and introduce yourself.
I'm Jean Bowley, my husband Cliff, and we lost our daughter to sarcoma about 4 years ago. And by the time they diagnosed her, it was really too late. And from what I understand now, the sarcoma that she has, there is no cure. So we're out, and we have been to the governor's 1 year, but it's kind of a hassle for us to get time off of work and get there. So we thought we would come to the city of Charles City and ask that you proclaim the month of July Sarcoma Awareness Month. It is supposed to be, but I don't think it's nationally yet, you know. So that's why we're here, for our Amy.
Very good, thank you. Any questions for Jean or Cliff?
So move.
Second.
Moved and second to approve the proclamation. Clerk will call the roll.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
I will come down and we'll read the proclamation. Once you guys come
See,
on
he
over
can
here.
learn.
Yeah, but it's a lot more entertaining.
All right. Whereas sarcoma cancers are rare and often aggressive, growing in the bones, muscles, and soft tissues of the body, and whereas sarcoma cancers are often diagnosed too late for effective treatment, while early diagnosis and proper treatment would lead to increased survival, and whereas sarcoma cancers are among the most common cancers occurring in children and young adults and are too often misdiagnosed as athletic or other injuries, and whereas most cancers take approximately 4 months to be diagnosed, sarcoma, however, takes an average of 14 months to be diagnosed. Consequently, this sometimes results in extreme treatments and a poor prognosis. Therefore, I, Dean Andrews, Mayor of Charles City, do hereby proclaim the month of July as Sarcoma Awareness Month in the city of Charles City. So I thank you for bringing this to our attention. Last meeting, we had a proclamation for Relay for Life. This is just one more aspect of that whole cancer fight, and so we appreciate you guys keeping us in the forefront on this, and I will give you this proclamation. Thank you very much. I'll let you go before I put the cord in front of you. And your welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but you don't have to feel obligated to stay for the rest of the meeting either, so.
She's keeping an eye on me is what she's doing.
Thank you, Dee.
Hands deep up here.
All right, well, moving right along, we have a couple of appointments to different commissions. Julie Hildebrand has been on the Civil Service Commission for quite some time and decided since she retired from the bank is a good time to retire from the Civil Service Commission. So I'd like to appoint Becky Borschel to take her place on the Civil Service Commission. And then for the Library Board, we have two reappointments. Vonda Cummins and Colette Schmidtke are both current members and would like to continue in their capacity on the Library Board. And Annette told me, I hope they do, because they're the incoming president and vice president. So. And Ryan McEnroy is going to replace Leonard Erickson as the rural member of the Library Board. I think Leonard has been on for quite some time, and Ryan is a art teacher in Osage, I think, and so he will be, they're very into the library and all the dealings at the library, so that I think they would all be good members. So I'd like to appoint those four individuals to their respective boards.
I'd so move, Your Honor.
Second.
Any questions?
I just thank them for their willingness to serve.
Very much so, thank you. Clerk will call the roll.
Malero.
Aye.
Star.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
All right, we will get them working. Next is a consideration of request from the Encouragement Corporation for street closure for the Christian rock concert on August 24th. Gary, do you want to fill us in on that one?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor, and thank you for Councilman for your time. I'm Gary Quint, and I'm here representing the Encouragement Corp. We're in our final phase of getting ready for our concert in August 24th, on August 24th, and it's from 7 till about 10:30. And we are asking for Kelly Street to be closed, the portion that is next to Central Park, from midnight on Friday till midnight on Saturday, so that we can do the staging and the generator and all that needs to be done for that concert. And that's what we would like your approval to do.
Any questions for Gary?
You've talked to all the businesses there that would affect as far as
Yes.
getting in and out?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, good. I see the chief has already signed off on it. I'd so move.
Second.
Any other questions or discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Star.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Very good. Thanks, Gary. It's always a big event in Charles City, so we're glad to see you doing it again this year. So,
Thank you.
Very positive.
Hope you can all come. Thank you.
next is consideration of Resolution 9019, which is approving the purchase of a loader for the street department. Discussion for this one.
Yeah, so this fiscal year 20, we budgeted for replacement of our larger end loader, our wheel loader. And Dirk put together a bid package and got quotes from 3 different vendors. One of them is from Case. One of them is a Case from Titan Machinery out of Des Moines for $121,000. The other is a John Deere out of Murphy Tractor in Waterloo for $125,408. And the third quote that we received was for a Cat, but it didn't quite meet the specifications. It was for a smaller end loader and didn't quite meet what we were looking for. So that one we didn't want to consider. But between the two, I know Dirk's here. If you want to say anything about we talked about this at workshop here last week, and our consensus was that we wanted to go ahead with the John Deere for the 125,408. It is a little bit more than the Case piece, but we feel it's a better fit, and we're getting a lot more for that extra $4,500 or thereabouts for the cost of the machine. So we budgeted $130,000 on a road use tax, and so we would recommend that we move forward with the purchase of the John Deere.
Any questions for Steve or Dirk?
We talked about this at the planning session. I'd so move.
Second.
Any further discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Star.
Aye.
All right. Next is Resolution 9119, which is approving a one-year renewal of the transit agreements with NIACOG for city and county transit services.
Yeah, so this is our, at our last meeting, we renewed our agreement with Circle K to provide the day-to-day operations of the transit. This is our agreement that the city has with NIACOG for providing that city service as well as providing the county service. The city service, as you may recall, is we share that 50/50, that expense with NIACOG, so 50% of it comes through federal government, DOT, the other 50% we levy for the shortfall, and so this agreement renews for a year. The only change that we're seeing in this agreement is that we are going to make Christmas Eve a full day off with no transit. Last year, there was just nobody using the transit that day, so we felt that it was probably justified to go ahead and just make that a full day with no transit service that day. So aside from that, everything else is the same. Ticket prices for students are $1.50, elderly disabled are $1, $4 for a regular adult ticket. Regular adult tickets are $4, which is something we changed last fall when we took this service over. So we would recommend approval of these agreements. I will mention the county agreement, that's fully reimbursed, so there's no outlay to the city on that for the county service. That's fully reimbursed, and the county pays in a portion of their own funding to NIACOG, but we're not part of that. So all that expense that we have towards that is 100% reimbursed, whereas the city is 50/50.
Any questions on,
In there, Steve, you mentioned and it says that us, Charles City and NIACOG share the operating costs 50/50, the excess operating costs. Do we pay the bills and NIACOG pay us back 50 or the other way around, or how do we internally handle that?
They handle most of the expenses, and then we pay them. But actually, they are, now that we've taken over the operation with employees and all that, they're actually they're reimbursing us for those expenses.
We're making the payroll,
We're making payroll, and then they pay us.
and we just bill them for their half or whatever it is.
Right. And that is something I asked Ginny about here last week, and it seems to be working pretty smoothly. I know before, when it was, when we were paying them as far as getting bills from them, it was a lot more time consuming, and it seemed to be a little bit more delayed. And I think that was a lot of the reason was because of the way it was operated before, just with all the tickets in hand, everything was handwritten. Now it's all computerized. Circle K is using the computer system that's provided, so everything works a lot faster. So
It works better now, and we got support for the 50%.
yes, yep, it's working well.
So I know NIACOG is concerned that this work every day. Are they okay with taking off Christmas Eve?
They were supportive of that, yes.
I would so move. Second.
any other discussion?
We're also going to look at reviewing the fees again this fall, kind of after we complete a full year of the whole process, right?
Yep, I think leading into budget season, we'll have a strong year under our belt for the city operations and pretty much a year for county, so it'd be a good time to look at that.
Take a
closer.
look at everything. Yep.
Any other discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Star.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Resolution 9119 is approved, and we'll then consider 9219, which is the final plans and specs for the 2019 Drainage Improvement Project, and then also setting a public hearing and bid letting. Discussion on that.
Right, so what this includes is this is our next phase of our stormwater projects that we've been working on. This one has three different prongs to it, I guess, if you would. This has improvements to Highway 18, the storm sewer, and the 1100 block of South Grand, which creates a diversion ditch between the 500 and 600 blocks of J Street, and site drainage at the Art Center building. Those are the three areas. So we've got limited storm sewer intakes on South Grand between 8th Street and Charlie Western Trail. A lot of that water is forced towards the Comet Bowl. And so this intake that we're going to be putting in, this diversion ditch, will take a lot of that and kind of redirect it so it doesn't impact that parking lot and that part of the Comet Bowl any longer. The other part is over on J Street between 6th and the 8th Avenues. A lot of stormwater runoff issues in that area. So we're going to be doing a diversion ditch in that spot there by J Streets to help address that. And then also, the third part of it is over here at the Art Center building, the old Carnegie Library. We've got a lot of issues with water coming back into the drain just outside that basement door. And a lot of it's due to the fact that when water runs through the storm sewer, it's such a low grade that it'll back up and come back out the intake. And so due to that, they have to close that door off and not use it or keep it blocked off with sandbags, which doesn't work very well because that's the ADA entrance into the building. So what this project would do is that it would create a separate trench drain on the backside of that wall there that would take the water and then redirect it and connect it into a deeper storm sewer out on Kelly Street. So we'd be able to address that stormwater issue also. So Resolution A2 we recommend is set for the letting hearing dates for those projects. For that project containing those three different pieces of it, I should say.
Any questions for,
So move.
Second.
and then this hearing date will be what
It's
date?
August 5th, isn't it?
August 5th.
August, yeah,
August
yep,
5th.
August 5th.
August 5th, okay.
I guess I was just going to say there are also other projects that we're looking at and going to be moving forward with as well, but some of them require a little more attention to detail and some more analysis before we can put something into place.
Yeah, we've got a lot of stormwater projects that we've, just from last year when we met, that we've knocked a lot of those out. This is another phase. Another one's, we're looking there by like on Oliver Street in that area that, we're going to include property acquisition and other things that are a little bit more labor or time intensive, I should say.
Right.
And so, there's more to come.
Right.
Any other questions or discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Resolution 9219 is approved. Next is 9319, approving transfers for fiscal year 19.
It's quite a list. Before, we used to be able to just list out the transfers that were not approved at budget time, but recent legislation changed that, and we have to list all of them. So that's why this list is a lot longer than it normally is. Most of these transfers are for things like debt service payments, cleaning out some accounts that either have a negative balance in them, or if we're moving them over, like the UV disinfection fund, there was a balance in there. So we moved that over to the wharf fund. I'm picking up on that,
That's right.
Steve. Wharf fund.
To the wharf.
Yeah. There's some transfers in here to the street-related capital improvements for the different portions from sewer, water, stormwater, for all the projects that we did for streets. Moving the transit levy to the transit fund. Some of the TIF expenses that we certified last year that we had paid out of general fund, we are now transferring those out of those TIF funds into the general fund to repay ourselves. That's about the big bulk of it right there. So I don't know if you had any questions on any of them in particular, but it's quite a long resolution.
So all of this also includes the one-day borrowing type stuff, right?
No, the
No?
one-day borrowing, how that works is when we borrow that money, it goes into wherever that expense was paid from.
Okay.
So if we bought like a squad car, it went into general fund to cover that.
Okay.
And then that money is just sitting in there in the debt service fund. So that's what we
Okay.
use to pay that loan off. Yeah, most of these transfers are for like water and sewer loans that need to get transferred into debt service to pay them.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Any other questions? A lot of just moving money from one pocket to the other. Huh? Clerk will call the roll.
Malero.
Aye.
Star.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Resolution 9319 is approved. Next is 9419, which is approving a quote from Autos Oasis for a retaining wall on North Illinois Street.
Yeah, so what this is, and this is something, we haven't talked about this at workshop, this is something that came up here this last week in association with the North Illinois and Kelly Riverside projects that we've been working on over there. And so I printed off some pictures. I emailed some out earlier today, but I also printed some off and handed them out there. Basically, this would be the 200 block of Illinois Street. When you put the curb and gutter in, I don't know how it was before, but now with the proper road width and everything put in, it's actually kind of cuts into both banks on either side. One side, it's not quite as drastic. That's where there's a couple trees. There are a couple maple trees. They're not ash trees, I looked. But there's a couple trees there that we'd like to preserve. And so a little retaining wall on that side would be a good way to really address that because some of the roots and whatnot are kind of exposed on that side. The other side is a little bit more drastic where you can see how it cuts into the hill. And to get adequate slope, we'd have to do work within the adjacent property owner's property, and so which would have its own costs, I guess, to do that and slope it down properly. So the best way moving forward that we're suggesting is we install a retaining wall on both sides, and that total cost to do that that we quoted from Autos is $12,376.49 for both sides. One side is just under 2,000, the other side is just over 10. But this would be an additional part of that Riverside, Illinois Street project. And in an effort to keep this moving so we can get this finished up, we thought we could put it on the agenda tonight for consideration and see if you guys are interested in moving forward with that. So there you have it.
Questions?
Were the property owners consulted with, and this is preferable to them as well, or is it just simply budget-wise, this is the most efficient way to go?
That's my assumption. I guess I don't know the details. I assume John did talk to the adjacent property owners about it, and I think the preference was, they wanted to keep the trees on the one side, and the other side, I got the impression that they weren't overly enthusiastic about the city reshaping their property,
Yeah.
type of thing. I mean, because it's quite to see it in person, it's a little bit more drastic than what the picture shows. I looked, there's no water or sewer utilities in that bank, so that's not a concern. There's actually a 12-inch water main that runs through that street there, so water pressure should not be an issue in that neighborhood.
But with all things being equal, as long as it's something that, fits with the properties, as long as they're consulted and given their say.
Yeah, I think this is a solution that worked best for everybody.
Okay.
That project's kind of been a pain in the back since we started it because things weren't where they were supposed to be when we started. But what are we doing on the financing of this? Is this another change notice for additional money, and where does it come out of?
Well, we would propose to pay this out of the same funding source, local option sales tax, that we funded the other part of the roadway work in that area. As far as the total budget, we've got to be close to what that budget is. This might put it over some. I can't say that definitively offhand. But yeah, that project has been a challenge, especially when you get to the lower part of a system with water, sewer, and things that are gravity based. You have a lot of conflicts because a lot of things have to be at the same elevation, and that was some of the issue we had last year during the building season. That and the weather was just not very cooperative, and so that led to delays, and so it'll be nice when that project's completed for sure.
All right, thank you. All right, so move.
Second.
Any further discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Star.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Resolution passes. We will next consider Resolution 9519, which is setting a public hearing on the conveyance of a section of South Jackson Street. Discussion here.
Yeah, so we've talked about this. We've taken action to prep this conveyance of the block of South Jackson. This would be where the new law enforcement center is going to be constructed. And so we held off on publishing it so that we could continue to use it as a street. But everything's in place to be able to move forward. And so now we've received notice from the county that we talked about a little bit at our last workshop that they're ready to proceed. They want to start doing some soil borings and additional things in that area. So we need to set public hearing so that we can take action on July 15th to officially convey that vacated right-of-way. So then at that point, that becomes the county's property, and we've encouraged them to close that off to regular traffic at that time. And that's is their intent to do that. So we would like to move forward with setting public and hearing, set hearing, so we can convey that over.
So move.
Second.
And that hearing will be on the 15th of our next council meeting.
Yes.
Any further questions? Clerk will call the roll.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Star.
Aye.
Next is consideration of Resolution 9619, which is approving the final design agreement with Calhoun Burns for the Charlie Western Trail Bridge.
Yeah, so this is the agreement that with our bridge engineers for the Charlie Western Trail Bridge. This is what will get us to final design, and it's set for an amount not to exceed $64,500. There is some unknowns in there for if there's any additional services, and that's billed hourly, but most of this is explicitly bid out in the agreement. And so we would recommend approval of Resolution 9619 to approve the agreement with Calhoun Burns for final design.
Questions, comments?
And the way it sounded the other night, the reason the bridge was shorter is because this new bridge is going to be somewhat lower than what the old one was.
Yes. Yep, currently, the current height is going to be somewhat lower, not drastically, but it needs to be ADA compliant, which the last bridge technically wasn't. So it's going to be a little bit lower, which helps in the distance. We only have to go about 350 feet, not 390, I think it was. So yeah, it'll be somewhat shorter, not noticeably, still high enough to be higher than the high flood level that we've had. And so it'll still be, very useful, to cross during high water times if the need arises. But yes, it will be a little shorter.
And this is designed to be able to be used by emergency vehicles, right?
Yes, it's going to have a 12-foot wide right-of-way. It's built to support anything short of a fire truck,
I was going to say, I don't
up to
think fire
including
trucks are
some,
gonna say.
but not the aerial.
Right.
But you can get some pretty big things across it. Then there's also going to be a couple bump outs out there as you cross the bridge, so you can stop and have a bench, relax, fish, whatever. We're planning for some lights across the bridge. We've also have some decorative railing on top that'll be reminiscent of the old railing, but a little bit more practical and useful going forward. So look forward to getting that final design. And the timing for this is we want to keep moving with this so we can get to a place where this coming January we're bidding it out, so we can get it at a good bid time and hit the ground running this spring of 20.
So move.
Second.
Any other questions? Call the roll.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Star.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Next is Resolution 9719, which is setting a hearing and approval of plans, specs, and form of contract and opinion of cost and award of contract for the August 19th, 2019 invitation to bid for the activated sludge plant. That's a lot of words there.
A lot of slug.
Give us a short version, Steve.
It is a lot of words, and it's a lot of pictures. I've never seen a set of plans that are so thick. That's one set
Oh, gosh.
there for the plant and on the whole project. So this is it. This is the wastewater treatment plant, the water reclamation resource facility that would put this out for bid. We'd request that the council move forward with setting public hearing, and by doing that tonight, we would be Fox would be sending these out for bidders starting tomorrow, most likely, and then bids would be due on August 8th at 2 o'clock. So we would open and review those at that time, and then the following council meeting on the 19th is when we would review those bids and consider award. So we about 3 or 4 years worth of work, I guess, sitting here to move forward on.
Have we got enough money put aside to mail those out to how many contractors? For postage?
You know, the advent of the computer has been very helpful. So it is a $250 deposit for anybody that wants to talk to Fox to get one of these. This is the small version. I mean, we have a full version. It takes up about half this table.
How many bidders would you think we'll get on that?
You know, they've had conversations with at least 4 or 5 that have expressed interest ahead of time. One of the most promising things I guess I've heard is that one of the bidders is somebody that recently bid on a project about a month or so ago, and they came up just a little short. So hopefully this might be the one that they might sharpen their pencils and get. So, you know, we're looking at, we have a total estimated cost of about, all in for about $19.5 million. That's kind of our current estimate. That includes land acquisition, other soil boring, you know, and costs that we've had. You know, we've got about part of the transfers. We had about we have 1.6 million in the wastewater operational fund that we've been, you know, that we've been setting aside for years, that we've been saving up. That's going to go in and offset that cost. We have that nice piece from the UV disinfection. That's about, what, 90,000. So that'll help too. So we're looking at, you know, if things come in, you know, under 18 million, that's somewhere in the ballpark of what we'd be looking at for a SRF loan. Hopefully they come in much better than that. Hopefully they don't come in worse than that. That makes things even tougher. So we're hoping for a lot of bids, a lot of good bids.
The bids are due when, in August?
August 8th.
Enough, 5 weeks, that's enough time for them?
That gives them plenty of time. Then we're looking at a notice to proceed of September 9th. And I don't think I put that on here, but September 9th, notice to proceed, and then substantial completion December of 21 with some additional 6 months, I think, after that to get it all done. So we're trying to give any bidders a lot of room as far as time-wise, and not try and constrain them, so they can, you know, give us a better bid that way. So we're
I know,
feeling good.
we're building a new plant, and then we have to tear down part of the old one. Does this thing cover both ends of that?
This covers everything. Yep. So
Getting rid of the old,
that initial December of 2021, 18 months. That's to get the new oxidation ditch installed and operational, and the new headworks in and going. And then we give them about another 9 months to get everything else completed, which will include demolition of some of the old structures. So you've got, you know, the bio tower and the trickling filter out there. That's the big circle dome area, and the silo decks beside it. Those are the 2 pieces. They'll get demoed because we won't use those anymore, and then that'll happen after we're operational with the other. So
This will be a revenue bond to finance this, right?
yes, what we've been looking at is funding this through SRF, through the revenues of the sale of sewer fees. So that's how we anticipate moving forward. We may, maybe we'll look at something and doing a little bit with general obligation. Hopefully, I'd prefer not to. I'd like to do it all revenue. But I guess it depends on where these bids come in at and where we feel comfortable as far as, fee structure. And so I think we'll keep our options open. But the vast majority is going to be a revenue bond.
Is there any other debt out there right now?
Well, yeah, we just started paying off on the UV disinfection. So
Right.
that just started 2 years ago. We got about 18 more years of that one.
Right.
We have another one that ends here in about 2 or 3 years. That'll be coming off, so that'll be a nice milestone to hit that. That'll help out with the cash flow.
And the UV deal we had to have, and that's even a part of this new
Yeah.
process anyway, so.
Yep, we're going to continue to utilize all of that. So that, so that's, probably money saved because we did it 4 or 5 years ago, and a little bit, would have been a little bit cheaper. But yeah, so that's all part of that's going to be, what we did a few years ago as part of the long-term solution for the new plant we're doing.
The revenue bonds for this project now would, according to our schedule, would be required to be issued approximately when? A year from now?
Well, yeah, I guess the final closeout of that would be probably that July of '22. First payment June of '23, probably. I'm thinking about that,
A
right?
lot can happen in the markets in between now and then.
It can, but this is going to be a Iowa revolving loan fund, and so, it's either a 275 for 20 years or 175 for 30 years. Or, I'm sorry, 175 for 20, 275 for 30. But since we've made the case of being declared a disadvantaged community, we are going to have the 175 for 30 years. And so that's what we're in the final stages of of verifying that. But, so we're going to have a very good interest rate for 30 years. But it's still a very expensive endeavor.
And we're also very mindful of how Simply Essentials is going to impact that whole deal, at least initially.
Yeah,
Hoping that somebody comes in there and gets that thing going again.
absolutely.
That'll make a huge difference on the funding.
I move for 9719.
Second?
Any other questions? Clerk will call the roll.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
9719 is approved, and we'll move on to 9819, resolution approving the amendment to the WRF project agreement with Fox to add the engineering services for the Chautauqua lift station.
Yep, so this is something that we talked about during goal setting this last year, was how the Chautauqua lift station there that's situated by Otto's Oasis, or right across from them, that's one of our lift stations that has a lot of flow. It's also very low. It's inside the 100-year floodplain, so it gets flooded out a lot, and it's undersized, so it runs pretty much nonstop. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to, as part of this project, since that's a relatively small project, it's about $250,000 is what they're estimating. So we'd like to incorporate that with this wastewater treatment plant project so that we can get it out of the floodplain and upsize the pumps so we can take on additional flows there. Because if there's going to be any additional type of development or anything on that side of Sherman Creek, it's going to flow through that lift station, so we need more capacity there. So what this does is this adds, it's approximately $28,100 onto the lump sum fee to Fox to add that portion of the project into the bid. So we would recommend approval of that resolution, 9819.
So would this be an add-on to the, a separate bid so that you can accept or not accept this
Yes.
part of the whole bid process?
Yep, this is going to be an alternate as
That's what I
part
was
of our
looking
main
for,
bid.
alternate.
So move.
Second.
Any further questions?
That's been a pain for a long time as far as flooding and things like that. It's just time to
Yep.
do something with it.
Dan will be
if we-
happy.
If we can.
A
Yeah.
lot of crew time spent worrying about it, and
Clerk will call the roll.
Malero.
Aye.
Star.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
9819 is approved. Any miscellaneous correspondence tonight?
None, Your Honor.
Attorney's report, Brad?
No, Your Honor.
City clerk report.
Okay, well, City Hall will be closed on July 4th for 4th of July. And just a reminder that the Chamber, or the Community Revitalization, has requested kind of a cleanup of the parking lots prior to the big July 4th festivities. So if anybody can find some time this week in between the rain, it looks like, on the forecast, they would appreciate getting those kind of spruced up again. And we will not be holding a meeting on July 10th due to lack of agenda items. The only item we had on there was just going back and revisiting the diagonal parking over at the courthouse, but I don't think that they're going to be quite ready for that. So we are just not going to meet on the 10th. So you can take that off of your schedule. That's it.
Good. City administrator report.
We did find a nice spot out at the wastewater treatment plant to have our meeting,
I
so
know.
we'll have to reschedule that and figure out when
That's
that's
right.
going to be. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that we have a group that's going to be coming into town. That's through Winnebago. They have a little RV tour that they started last year, and each year they're going to different communities. And this year they want to come to Charles City. It's July 21st into the 22nd, so it's Sunday, late morning to early afternoon. They want to come into town, and what they're asking is they'd like to be able to park behind City Hall, library, and the churches there, and those parking stalls to be able to set their RV units. They're all van sized. They're the ones that they build over there in Lake Mills, and so they're requesting use about 67 of those stalls or overflow down here in the lower parking lot area. So I'll probably have an official request on the next council meeting for you guys to consider that. They've been working with Ginger, and so she directed them to the city. They're also reaching out to the two churches there to kind of coordinate things, not only for parking, but for storm shelter use if needed. Dirk and I met with Dirk. Yeah, Dirk's still. We met with them last week and discussed about use of City Hall as storm shelter, use of bathrooms, using the electrical out there. Tell them what we had and comparing to what they need. And it sounds like a lot of those units have these super duper electrical systems that can run without charging for 3 days. So for the most part, they'll be in good shape. But they've set up a whole day's worth of events with our outfitters down here for tubes and board rentals. They also have worked out with St. Charles Brewery to open up for that day, and they're working with Hot Shots and the Mexican restaurant is bringing in a meal. So it's kind of a neat deal. There's going to be a whole bunch of people coming in that late Sunday and into Monday. So you have to get some approval from the city to utilize that parking lot, and it looks like it's going to be a really neat event. So.
And what date was that again, Steve?
July 21st. The next thing I want to mention is also out there with our wastewater treatment plant wharf project. We take possession of the McEnany House tomorrow. We get the keys for that, so we'll be Wednesday. So we'll be walking through that to take a look at that. Have also had a request from the owners of 300 Shaw, the other property that we purchased out there, and they are requesting some additional time to stay. And so we've been discussing with them a possible month-to-month lease, coming up with a rental rate for them to stay. There's no reason to have to move out. It'd be actually kind of nice if somebody would be in there, because as you know, we don't need to do anything with those two homes. We just need to get close to them. So we'll be looking at something like that for those guys. On that same subject, until we find a long-term solution for the 302, the McEnany property, what do we want to do with it? Do we want to rent that? That might be, it'd be nice to have somebody in it, and so something to think about. Other thing I want to mention is you may have seen that the community got a renewal on our Great Places designation. which Mark Wicks could tell you all about. So that was good. We also got notification that we did not get renewed for our Culture and Entertainment District. We got a report back today on some of the things that they were looking for, and some of the things we'll tweak for next year, because we've added a lot of neat things since our last application. But there's some things we're going to tweak with that, and look to reapply next year, and I think we'll be approved without too much. Well, I shouldn't say that. I think we'll have a good chance next year. We got 80% this year, so that's got to be pretty close to getting approved. So. Broadband project, just to bring you up to speed on that, we're getting closer to getting the business plan back on that. The thing that's been slowing this down is location, and initially we thought, well, we'll name City Hall as the location, but in all reality, City Hall does not work very well for that. Tour of the facility with the Broadband Commission and others, they were not impressed with the City Hall, I guess I could say. So we know that's not an option, and so we wanted to just generally kind of designate, an area, because we're looking at 2 or 3 different properties, and that was a bit of a work back and forth with the engineer, because they want a site specific of where everything's going to be. So long story short, we have 3 general locations narrowed down within a few blocks of each other. One of them being 500 North Grand, part of the middle school building. So that's kind of our default location, and we'll have an option to change that for an amount of about $19,000 up to, if we have to change it from that location. So we're getting that narrowed down, and with that, Eric from Lookout Point feels he's going to have that business plan done here by July 23rd. So we should have that back as commission, so we can start reviewing that, and doing all that good stuff, and get that project up and going. So last thing I'll mention is next week I'll be at a state conference in Decorah. So I'll be actually out of the office Tuesday through Friday, so I'll be here Monday. That's all for me.
Steve, on broadband, are we working with New Hampton yet on something?
Yeah, I mean, we've been working with New Hampton, generally speaking, on this project, and and they're working on a similar project.
Mm-hmm.
They took a change in direction with who they were working with as far as consultant and engineering. So I'm not sure where they're at right now in the project, but a big part of our project relies on a connection through New Hampton. But with that being said, we're also planning for an option B. If New Hampton isn't on board and doing that connection, we have them working on another option to loop around if that doesn't work out. But we hope to.
I thought last week you mentioned that we had a option offered from Pause on that house.
Yes.
Is that gone off the table?
No. I think long term that might be something that would be something certainly worth considering. I just don't know how soon that would happen. So for this first winter, if we wanted to do something with the building, lease it or whatever. Otherwise, it's probably just going to sit. It's going to sit there empty. I mean, we'll heat it and everything, but something we'll be talking about at some point here at a workshop is Pause has made a request to utilize that building of the McEnany's over there with the Pause operation. So could be a solution there too.
Full bathroom.
That's it then, Steve, for your
That's
report? Okay. Any board or commissioner committee reports tonight? If not, we'd have a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
That would be slick.
Congratulations.